Something in my sister's closet made me question everything I thought I knew about her. It's been 7 weeks since we buried Qley. I still catch myself waiting to hear her music through the wall or hearing her keys jingle in the front door. But the silence? It's louder than anything else in this house. My name's Giovanni Santiago. I'm 19, took a semester off college after everything went to hell, and now I'm just here, at home in San Mateo, surrounded by memories that feel half real. My parents, Carlos and Rosa, are dealing with her death in completely opposite ways. My dad's throwing himself into work like nothing happened, and my mom hasn't left her room much, unless it's to fold clothes that don't need folding. Everyone's trying to move forward, but I swear, this house is stuck in pause. Qley was 25. Smart. Private. The kind of person who always seemed to be 5 steps ahead of everyone, but somehow never made you feel dumb about it. She worked for a nonprofit in the city, supposedly doing community outreach and mentoring teen girls. That's what we thought. That's what she told us. And we believed her. Until last Tuesday. I was cleaning out her bedroom because my mom couldn't bring herself to do it. The room still smelled like her, that lavender vanilla mix she always wore, like a candle that never finished burning. I wasn't even looking for anything. Just going through drawers, boxing up clothes for donation, tossing out old makeup, that sort of thing. Then I opened her closet. Behind a stack of old photo albums and a duffel bag with broken zippers, there was a shoebox taped shut. Nothing fancy, just an old blue Skechers box with 3 layers of clear packing tape around it like it was hiding state secrets. I don't know what made me open it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the way it was hidden, like it wasn't supposed to be found. My fingers hesitated on the tape for a second. Then I peeled it back. Inside, I found 3 things. A leather-bound journal, the kind you get from those overpriced bookshops with a little gold latch. A cheap burner phone with no case and half a charge left. A small stack of Polaroids wrapped in a rubber band. That's when something shifted in my stomach. Like I had just opened a door to a room I didn't know existed in a house I thought I knew by heart. I started with the journal. The first page was blank. So was the second. Then, on the 3rd page, Qley's handwriting appeared. Neat, almost too careful, like she didn't want to mess up. If anyone's reading this, it means something went wrong. I stopped reading and just stared at that sentence. I wanted to close the book and forget I ever found it. But that's not how my brain works. I had to know what she meant. I flipped the page. Her entries were dated, each one spaced days or even weeks apart. The first few were short, mentions of someone named M, a few cryptic lines about risking too much and needing proof. Then I saw, met with M again. He says the files will take time. Can't believe Dad still thinks we don't know. If this backfires, he'll ruin everything to protect himself. I blinked at the word Dad. She couldn't mean our dad. Our dad ran a construction company. He donated to church raffles and grilled chicken every Sunday. He wasn't shady. Was he? I kept reading. The journal got darker, longer. Qley was tracking conversations, keeping tabs on people, worrying about being followed. She talked about getting close to someone named Adrian, a reporter who actually gives a damn, and referenced things like leaked documents and funds being moved offshore. This wasn't the Qley I knew. This was someone living a double life. I put the journal down and picked up the burner phone. It was basic, the kind you buy at a gas station, barely a step above a toy. Only 5 contacts in it. 4 of the numbers were saved with just initials. One stood out, M. I clicked through the messages. Most were deleted, but a few remained. M, same spot tomorrow. Don't bring anything. Qley, he's starting to suspect. If I disappear, go straight to her. You're not disappearing. Not unless I go first. My palms were sweating. I didn't even realize I had stopped breathing for a second. I looked at the Polaroids next. They were blurry, taken at a distance. One showed what looked like our dad stepping into a black SUV with tinted windows. Another showed a check written to a Marisol K for $20,000, with consulting written in the memo. I'd never heard of Marisol. The last photo? It was of Qley sitting at a diner booth across from a man I didn't recognize. He looked older, maybe late 30s, Hispanic, short beard, faded denim jacket. His hand was on the table, pointing at something in a notebook. Her face looked guarded. I took a gamble and opened the call log on the burner. Last outgoing call, 1 week before she died. I stared at the number. Then, without thinking, I dialed it from my own phone. It rang once, twice. Then a voice picked up. Male, calm, deep. Yeah? I swallowed. Hi. I think you knew my sister, Kayla Santiago? Silence. Who is this? The man asked sharply. My name's Giovanni. I'm her brother. Another pause. Then the voice softened just slightly. Giovanni, he said, like he already knew me. You weren't supposed to find that phone. I froze. Who are you? I asked. More silence. Then, I think we should talk. Not over the phone. Click. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every sound in the house felt louder. Every creak, every drip of the faucet. I kept replaying that journal entry over and over. If anyone's reading this, it means something went wrong. Was her death not an accident? Why would my sister hide all this? And who the hell was this man that knew me by name? I didn't have any answers, just a gut full of fear and a box full of questions I wasn't ready for. But I knew one thing for sure. The Qley I buried wasn't the Qley I just found, and I wasn't going to let her truth stay hidden. The next morning, I told my parents I was going to the library. Technically, that wasn't a lie. I passed it on the way to the diner where Qley had met that guy in the Polaroid. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even know if he'd show. But something about the way he said my name stuck with me. Not just the fact that he knew it, but how he said it. Like he'd been expecting me. The diner was nearly empty. Just a couple older folks sipping coffee and a waitress folding napkins near the register. I picked the booth by the window, the same one from the photo. I didn't order anything, just sat there with my hands in my hoodie pocket, tapping my fingers against the lining like some kind of nervous metronome. He walked in exactly 12 minutes later. Denim jacket, salt and pepper stubble, eyes that didn't blink enough. He slid into the seat across from me like we were regulars. No handshake, no greeting. You look like her, he said, staring at me. I swallowed. You're Mason. He nodded once. And you're digging where you shouldn't be. I leaned forward. Then tell me why she died. He blinked slowly. We don't know that she was killed. Come on, man. My voice cracked more than I wanted it to. You don't hide burner phones and coded journal entries if everything's fine. He looked away, like he was measuring whether to tell me the truth or lie and walk away. Eventually, he sighed. I didn't want to involve you, Mason muttered. You were never supposed to know about any of it. Too late for that. He reached into his jacket slowly. My heart jumped for a second, but all he pulled out was a folded envelope. Inside was a printed email thread between Qley and someone named Adrian Cole. Adrian's a reporter, he explained. Independent, works out of Oakland. Your sister was helping her uncover something about your dad's company. I blinked. What do you mean, my dad's company? You ever hear of MCS Consulting? Yeah, that's one of his clients. He's done work for them. Mason gave me a sharp look. They're not a client. He owns half of it. No, he never said that. Exactly. Mason leaned closer. Qley found records, fake invoices, ghost employees, money being funneled through MCS to shell companies in Mexico and the Dominican Republic, all traced back to accounts under names connected to your dad. I sat back in the booth, staring at him. My stomach twisted. No way, he's not that guy. I didn't think so either, Mason said. But Qley was sure. She had files, emails, bank statements. She was going to hand it all off to Adrian once she felt safe. I thought about the journal, the way she wrote about being followed, the cryptic lines about if something happens. I rubbed my hands over my face. Why didn't she go to the cops? She tried. No one took her seriously. Not without hard proof. And your dad? Mason's tone darkened. He's not some amateur. He covers his tracks. He's got friends in places that matter. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My whole life, Dad had been the guy who bought donuts for the office staff, who stayed late to fix broken pipes at job sites, who always said, work hard, don't cut corners. But maybe that's all I ever saw, what he wanted us to see. I forced my voice to steady. How did you even meet Qley? He hesitated, then finally said, I used to work with your dad, years ago. She reached out after finding my name in a folder on one of his backup drives. She found a backup drive? In a locked drawer in his home office. She told me about it during our second meeting, said she copied everything. You didn't find a flash drive, did you? I shook my head. Then it's still hidden, he muttered. She must have stashed it somewhere else. What if he found it? I said. What if he knew she was digging? Mason didn't answer. He just looked at me with that heavy silence that feels like an answer, all on its own. That night, I tried to act normal. Ate dinner with my parents, listened to my dad talk about a project in Fresno, nodded at the right times, but I couldn't look him in the eye. Every word he said felt off. Every story now seemed like a carefully rehearsed script. Later, when I was back in my room, I pulled out Kayla's journal again. This time I read slower. A few entries stood out now in a different way. He's not the man we think he is. I don't know if Mom suspects anything, but she's been asking more questions lately. Mason says we can't go to Adrian yet, not until I have the full chain of transactions. She was close, really close. Close enough that someone might have wanted her to stop. I couldn't sleep, so I did something I hadn't done in years. I snooped. At 2:13 a.m., when the house was silent and the hallway creaked like a guilty whisper, I crept toward my dad's office. The door wasn't locked. The room smelled like printer toner and citrus cleaner. I checked his desk drawers first. Nothing. Then the filing cabinet. The third drawer had a folder labeled Archive MCS. Inside were contracts, invoices, payment schedules. Everything looked normal at first, until I noticed something. One of the vendors was KSR Holdings. I pulled out my phone and typed the name into Google. Nothing. No website. No business registration. I checked again, this time with .gov at the end of the search. Still nothing. I snapped pictures of every document. As I was putting the folder back, I heard a noise, barely a thump from upstairs. I froze. My hands were shaking as I gently closed the drawer and eased out of the office. Back in my room, I stared at the photos on my phone. I didn't know what I was looking at exactly, but I knew it wasn't clean. And if Qley had found more than this, she was walking into something big. Too big. The next morning, I decided to talk to my mom. We sat on the patio. She was sipping tea, looking out at the backyard like it was some kind of escape. I didn't ease into it. Did Qley ever talk to you about Dad's work? She blinked slowly. What do you mean? Like, was she ever worried about him? She didn't answer for a few seconds. Then, in a low voice, she said, "She asked me once if I ever thought your father was too careful. What did you say?" I said, "That's just who he is, precise, responsible." She paused. She didn't seem convinced. I leaned forward. "What aren't you telling me?" Rosa looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her mouth tight. "She told me something," she said. "The week before she died." My heart stopped. She said, "Mom, if something ever happens to me, don't believe the first story they tell you. There's something that happens when the people you trust the most start turning into strangers. It's not instant. It creeps in. One off comment, one unanswered question, one strange file you were never supposed to see. Then suddenly, everything you thought was true about your life has cracks running through it. And the more you look, the more it crumbles. That's what the past few days had been like." After that conversation with my mom, when she told me Qley warned her not to trust the first version of the story, I didn't sleep again. I kept seeing Qley's face in the back of my mind, hearing her voice say it too. Don't believe the first story they tell you. What if the official story, the one where she slipped and hit her head in the shower, wasn't the real one? And if it wasn't, who made it the real one? The next day, I met Mason again, this time in the parking lot of an abandoned strip mall. It was the kind of place where no one would look twice at two people sitting in a car talking. He was in the driver's seat. I brought everything I'd found, photos of Dad's documents, more of Qley's journal entries, the burner phone, and the Polaroids. Mason flipped through the photos I'd taken and nodded. This matches what she was tracking. KSR Holdings is a shell company. No employees, no office, just a mailbox in Nevada. Your dad was funneling money through it to pay off subcontractors who didn't actually exist. Why? I asked. What's the point? It's an embezzlement loop, he said. He creates fake vendors, bills them for services never rendered, and pockets the money. It looks like business expenses. No one questions it unless they dig. And Qley was digging. Hard. He looked over at me. She wanted to go public. She thought it could take down the whole network, your dad, his business partners, even a few government contracts. Adrian Cole was going to run the story in pieces slowly to protect Kayla's identity until they had legal backing. My mind was spinning. But something happened. Mason nodded slowly. 3 days before she died, she stopped responding to Adrian. Didn't show up for their meeting. He handed me a flash drive. She managed to send this to Adrian the week before. It's encrypted. Adrian couldn't get it open without the key. She assumed Kayla still had it. I stared at the drive in my hand. Encrypted with what? She used phrases from her journal as the password. Adrian said she tried a bunch already, but nothing worked. I pulled out the journal and flipped through it right there in the car. Nothing obvious stood out. No repeated phrases, no code words, until one entry near the back. Kayla had written, "Only one thing ever really scared me. The day I realized someone I loved might be the person who hurts me most." I read it out loud. Mason turned and looked at me. Try that as the password. That night, I drove out to the coast. I needed air and space and, honestly, distance. I sat in my car parked near the cliffs and opened the flash drive on my laptop. Typed in the full sentence. The folder opened. Inside were labeled PDFs, spreadsheets, and a series of recordings. One folder was called Meetings Carlos S., another Deposits March-July, and a third Warnings. I opened the recordings first. They were audio files. Kayla had recorded conversations. Some were phone calls. Others sounded like she left her phone recording during in-person meetings. One was with Adrian. "Adrian, do you trust Mason?" "Kayla, I trust him more than anyone else involved. Doesn't mean I don't think this could get me killed." Another was with Mason. "Mason, they'll push back if you make noise." "I'm done being quiet." The last one was different. It was a voicemail. Unknown voice. "You need to stop. Walk away, Kayla. You're not invincible. People disappear all the time. Don't be next." My fingers went cold. I recognized that voice. It was my dad. I couldn't believe it at first. I replayed it 6 times. There was no question. The tone, the cadence, the way he said her name. I don't think he meant to sound threatening, but it was there, just under the surface. The kind of threat you can only make if you're sure the person you're talking to won't dare challenge you. I sat there in the car for a long time, listening to the ocean crash against the rocks and trying to piece together the kind of man my father actually was. Was he always like this? Did Kayla see it long before the rest of us did? And how much had my mom known? I called Mason. "Did you know about the voicemail?" I asked. "No," he said, "but I'm not surprised." She was scared of him. She should have been. "Why didn't you go to the police with this?" "Because threats aren't illegal until someone follows through. And your dad? He's got people, lawyers, friends in the department. You walk in with half a case and it disappears before anyone files a report." I closed my eyes. "I want to talk to Adrian." "She's been waiting for that." 2 days later, I met Adrian Cole in person. She was nothing like I expected. Late 40s, denim jacket, boots, and a face that didn't flinch easily. She gave off the kind of energy you feel from someone who's had more doors slammed in her face than opened. We met at a bookstore in Oakland she said was neutral ground. "I'm sorry about Kayla," she said, shaking my hand. She was brave. "She shouldn't have had to be," I said. We went over the files together. She had copies of everything, but not the recordings. I gave her those. She asked me for permission to use Kayla's name in the article. I hesitated. She didn't want to be a martyr, I said. She just wanted the truth out. "Then that's how I'll tell it." She gave me one more folder. "I want you to see this." It was a printout of a message thread between Kayla and Adrian from a week before Kayla's death. "Kayla, I'm afraid he found out. Things feel off at home. Do you want to go to a safe house? Not yet. If I disappear, he wins. Kayla, please don't take chances. If anything happens, Giovanni will figure it out." My throat tightened. She had planned for this, trusted that I'd follow the breadcrumbs, trusted me more than I ever knew. That night, I went back to the house and stared at my dad's office door. Everything in me wanted to burst in, slam the printouts on the desk, and scream, "What did you do?" But I didn't. Because if Kayla was right, and my dad was the kind of man who could hurt someone to protect himself, then I needed to be smart. So I waited. I started copying everything onto a secure cloud. Backups on flash drives, screenshots of the messages, copies of Kayla's journal. I wasn't going to be the next person to disappear. I also reread the final pages of her journal. One entry said, "I used to think my family was my safe place. But sometimes the people you love most are the ones who bury the deepest secrets." I didn't sleep much after meeting Adrienne. Knowing what Qley went through, what she uncovered, what she sacrificed, it made the silence in our house feel heavier. My father still walked around like nothing was wrong, laughing too easily, pouring himself coffee, asking about my future plans like we weren't sitting on a volcano. I couldn't pretend anymore. I kept her journal under my mattress. The flash drive was now hidden in 3 different places: cloud backup, thumb drive under my bed frame, and a second copy in a sealed envelope taped under my car's dashboard. Paranoia? Maybe. But after everything I'd read and heard, I didn't care. Qley trusted me to finish what she started. I wasn't about to let her down. I waited until Sunday. Every Sunday afternoon, my dad left for a few hours to check progress at a job site, usually just an excuse to disappear for a while. Mom used to go with him, but lately she stayed in. Quiet, distant. I waited until the garage door closed and his car pulled out. Then I moved fast. I slipped into his home office and closed the blinds. Everything in there was precise. Folders alphabetized, pencils in a cup by height. Not the kind of guy who left things lying around. But if Qley had found something once, I could find more. This time, I pulled back the rug. Nothing. Then I noticed one of the floorboards had a tiny notch near the edge. Almost invisible unless you were looking. I pried it up gently. There was a thin steel lockbox underneath. I stared at it for a second. The irony hit hard. The guy who warned Qley that people disappear all the time had hidden the truth beneath our feet. I used a screwdriver to pop the latch open. Inside were 2 flash drives, a burner phone identical to the one Qley had, and a stack of papers. I took photos of everything. Every document, transaction receipt, email thread. I even emailed some to Adrienne on the spot, using a dummy account Qley had set up in one of her journals. The username made my throat tighten. Truth for K25. She had prepared for this. She just didn't make it to the finish line. But I would. That night, I sat on the back steps of our porch while Mom watered the garden in silence. The sun was setting behind her, streaks of orange and pink across the sky. It looked peaceful. It wasn't. "I found the lockbox," I said without turning. The watering can froze in her hand. "I know what he's been doing," I said. I heard the voicemail, the threats. I read everything Qley kept hidden. She didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "I was afraid." I turned to her. "Did you know?" "Not everything," she whispered, "but enough to know she was in danger." "Why didn't you say anything?" She set the watering can down slowly. "Because I didn't think she'd die." I didn't know whether to be angry or just sad. Maybe both. "She came to you for help," I said. "I know." She looked at me then, eyes glossy but not crying, and I'll regret not listening to her for the rest of my life. The next morning, I walked into my dad's office holding the journal and a flash drive. He was typing on his computer, a coffee half drunk next to him. "You knew," I said. "You knew what she was doing. You knew she was going to expose you." He didn't flinch, just sat back in his chair slowly. "She was confused," he said. "She wasn't confused. She was right." "You don't understand." "I do." I cut him off. I heard the voicemail. He blinked. "You threatened her." "I warned her," he said, voice sharpening. "There's a difference." "She's dead." His jaw clenched. "You need to let this go, Giovanni. For your own good." I dropped the journal on the desk between us. "It's already gone. I gave everything to the press. Adrienne Cole has it all. This time, she's not alone." His face went pale. Real pale. "I'm your father." "No," I said. "You're the man who made my sister live in fear." I turned and walked out before he could say another word. 3 days later, the story broke. Front page of a major regional paper. Local businessmen under investigation for fraud, embezzlement, and possible connection to whistleblower death. They didn't mention Qley's name until the follow-up story. But when they did, they told the truth. They included quotes from her journal, audio from the voicemail, and snapshots of the paper trail she left behind. The reaction in San Mateo was instant. Quiet whispers turned to open stares. Old friends called my mom to ask how we were. Coworkers stopped showing up to the office. And then one morning, a black SUV pulled up outside. Federal agents. He didn't fight it. My father was arrested on charges of wire fraud, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice. More were coming. They didn't say anything about Kayla's death. Not yet. But Adrienne told me off the record, now that the corruption was exposed, the case into her death would be reopened. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The week after his arrest, I went back to Kayla's room. It still smelled like her. Lavender vanilla, just a hint now, like she had just walked out minutes ago. I sat on her bed and opened the last page of the journal. The page was blank, until I held it up to the light. She'd written something in pencil so faint, it looked invisible unless angled just right. If I don't make it, at least someone will know the truth. That's all I ever wanted. The truth. I visit her grave sometimes, even though I know she's not really there. She's in the articles, in the inboxes she set up, in the voices of the people she tried to protect. The truth cost her everything, but it gave me a purpose I never knew I needed. Her name won't disappear. Not now. Not now. Not ever. My sister died fighting for something real, and now, so am I. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. If you want to share your stories, please comment below. Additionally, what is your opinion on the poster's decision?